lot of individuals who are in the waiting room or I guess there's 8 individuals who are waiting in the waiting room, but I only have room for 100 participants. So I'll record this, and then for those who weren't able to watch this live, we will make sure that they get this recording. Does that work?
Sure. Yes, sure.
Okay, great. Okay, I will share my screen. Okay, so as you already know, this is the accelerating trends that will shape the future of HR. And it's brought to you by myself, the wonderful wizard of HR from Key HR Services. And I am truly, truly excited to be a part of this experience and to connect with all of you. And once again, thank you very much, Dr. Mahisha, for inviting me to speak today. So I wanted to give you just a little, I think there's some people may have their mute button off. If you could please try to mute yourselves so that we don't get any feedback during the presentation, that would be wonderful. And I will be asking some questions as we go through, I will have spots for questions as we go through the presentation. So if you do have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And then in the sections where we'll stop for quick questions, I'll just check the chat to make sure that there are any. And if there aren't, we'll just keep going on. And then we'll do questions again at the end of the presentation. And so this is what the layout will look like. I have a little bit of my story. Nancy already touched on a little bit of that. And then we will go to the short life of HR. And then we'll talk about how we preserve the functional side of HR now that HR is transitioning as we're seeing it transition into people and culture. We'll talk a little bit about the recruiting side, the onboarding, and the communication. And in section 4, we'll ask ourselves, where in HR does artificial intelligence belong? And then section 5 will be the takeaways from today, just basically from the accelerating trends of HR. Okay. So here I am. I'm a family of all boys. I'm the only girl in my family. I have my husband, I have 2 young men, and 3 male puppies. In my early career, I was educated and experienced in the legal field. I went to the Toronto School of Business, and I worked at a law firm, and I mostly focused on family law, a little bit of wills and estates, and corporate and criminal law. And then I moved to a very small town to be with my husband, and they had court once a Monday, one Monday every month for half a day. And I just really couldn't do anything from the legal aspect. So I found a job in HR. And now for the past 22 years, that's what I've been doing, is human resources in a generalist capacity. I have 13 years of leadership experience in leadership positions. And the past 8 years, I've been in consulting. And so a little bit about my story this past year. So 2020 has really changed the way that I do things personally. And these are the trends that we are seeing. So COVID didn't allow me to be able to go into my clients' offices. And that was a huge part of my business. I would help them with difficult conversations. I would help them with their recruitment, help them with terminations. We would sit down at the round table and we would do strategic planning. And that kind of went to the wayside when COVID hit. And so in May, I had to change things, the way I do things. So I started a YouTube channel called The Wonderful Wizard of HR. And recently I decided to create an online program for small business owners who they're not big enough to have an HR department, but they are small enough to have HR issues. So they're just trying to navigate through HR on their own without an HR background. So this program that I created talks about all the facets of HR from the practical side, plus it helps them with mindset and research and how to deduct the information that they receive. And I share a lot of my own personal experiences so that they're able to go on their own. And also I provide them with lifetime access to me in weekly group calls. And they're also part of a group community. And what I found is this gives me the opportunity to still reach my clients, but really empower them to be able to do this on their own. So as Nancy said, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as the Wonderful Wizard of HR, but you can also find my company on my company website at keyhr.ca, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter as my company, Key HR Services. Now the Key is just part of my last name, Kiwasu. That's how I came up with the name, so I'm really not that original. Okay, so let's talk about the short life of HR. I'm sure all of you as HR professionals, HR students, know that HR hasn't been around for very long, just over 100 years. So let's take a look at HR compared to other departments in a business. So accounting, law, and information technology are thousands of years old. Some have been around as long as humans have been around. Management is hundreds of years old, so is safety actually. But human resources started very small, and we're going to get into the evolution of human resources next. So this is what it's looked like over the past 100 years. So in personnel, we had very early years, in the early 1900s, we were considered the personnel administration department, and we were strictly administrative. We would do orientations, we'd have employee files, and we would take on payroll. And that was basically it. Then as time went on, we started transitioning from the personnel department to human resources. And the reason we became human resources, obviously, was because there was a human side to it, the personnel side, but that we were also a major resource for people. So we had recruitment, employee policy. Excuse me, can we try muting?
Teresa, can you mute the participant?
I'm going to try and mute.
Yeah.
I just have to. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second because it's not allowing me to mute.
Hey, Devanira, your mic.
Okay, so I have muted everybody. I've taken off the option to unmute yourself, but when we get into questions, I will put the option back on just because there was a lot of feedback noise there. And I'd like to continue on with the presentation. So I hope everybody is okay with that. And let's get back to sharing the presentation. And if there's something that you would like to say, you can throw it in the chat and I'll watch that every once in a while. Okay, so as we were talking, human resources developed or transitioned into human resources, and we were more involved in recruitment, employee policies, progressive discipline, performance management. We were still administrative, but we were also process driven. And we also had the ability to be a little bit more strategic than we were in the past. There was still a disconnect though. We weren't always seated at the executive table. Some HR professionals were and some weren't. So there was a little bit of disconnect at how important human resources was. Of recent years, probably the past 5 to 10 years, we've started to see a transition from human resources to people and culture. With people and culture, we're finding that we are definitely more strategic. We have a seat at the table, at the executive table, with the C-suites, all the chiefs. There's chiefs of HR now, and we are, or chief of people in culture. We are the legal liaison. We do mediation. We're a lot more involved in how the company works from a people standpoint and how the culture is set. So the evolution truly is happening fast, and we are seeing even more changes now with AI and now with COVID and remote workplaces. We're just seeing a rapid change. People in culture may shift even more now more than ever. So sadly, what has happened with human resources is we ended up, for some reason, having a negative connotation attached to our name. Even though the intention was to transition from strictly being administrative to more strategic and to help the people of the company, it didn't exactly transition that way. We started being considered bureaucratic, even though we didn't truly always have a seat at the table. So we weren't always part of bureaucracy. We were considered the HR police. Everybody thought that we were policy driven and not respected by employees. And so we really were fighting against that, because we are policy driven, but to help the employees and the employers. But we had a hard time showing people that's the way that we do things. We were considered paper pushers. We spent more time on administrative duties than with employees. And we were actually the feared department because we were often thought as only being present when there was an employee issue or a termination to follow. And the reason that happened is because we are a very, very confidential department. A lot of the things that we do have to be done in a confidential manner. So by nature, we obviously will have a lot of individuals will not know what we're up to. They only see when there's, not the great things happening. So when we started shifting to people and culture, we actually started seeing a shift in the energies in our people and the way that they approach us. It's amazing how a name will do that. So let's just talk a little bit more about people and culture. When we started looking at the culture of an organization and how we can connect our practices and our people to it, we are advancing and keeping up with the needs of our employees. So we're a little bit more respected now, and it's not just the change in the title. It feels like a deeper meaning. We really truly are wanting to connect the culture. We're now more connected to the legal side of things, and we're acting as legal liaisons to legal departments and outside legal sources. We understand the intricacies of employment law, human rights law, and privacy law, which gives us a lot more connection, not only to our employees, but also to the employers and the company decision makers. We are now innovators and disruptors, offering unprecedented services to employees. such as unlimited time off. I don't know if any of you have heard of that yet, but unlimited time off is something that a lot of companies are starting to give and putting the trust back in the employees to not take 365 days off. And thinking pods or thinking rooms, there are a lot of companies now that have designated areas where you can just go and be creative. They also have game rooms. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Yahoo having a slide in their organization, but things shifted to make it not just a workplace, but a fun place to work and a place where you could feel relaxed. We also now have transitioned into thought leaders. So we're considered an asset to the organization. We're not just a seat at the executive table, but looked at as an essential contributor to the success of the company. So now I'm just going to take a moment. If you have any questions at this moment, feel free to put it in the chat and I can quickly answer your question. I do see that there is somebody who's been waiting in the lobby. If you didn't come, if you weren't here at the beginning, just to let you know, I have a maximum of 100 people to bring into this Zoom session, but I am recording the Zoom, so they will have access to it later. If you are speaking with them, please send them my apologies. This is great that so many people want to be a part of this journey. It really makes me happy. Okay, so I see that we don't have any questions right now, so we will continue on until the next question section. You're welcome. Okay, so now we're going to get into how do we preserve the functional side of HR. In recruitment, do we completely get rid of the resume screening and the important aspects of finding good people? Do we just trust our gut and let technology do the rest? If we are dealing with people, will automation create a disconnect? And is there such a thing as being too efficient? So in the next slides, we are going to, I love what everybody is doing with the arrows and circling. I didn't even realize that was a possibility in Zoom. So I love that everybody is circling the topics. I'll have to learn that feature in the future. That's just fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so in the next slides, we are going to be going through each of these questions. So first of all, do we completely get rid of resume screening and the important aspects of finding good people? I personally have seen how some recruitment systems have missed the mark on very good hires. With restrictions on keywords, some great employees get lost in the shuffle just because they're not experts at resume writing. This is something that we need to adjust before the artificial intelligence of some of the recruitment systems out there, before they can actually work seamlessly. I still personally, if you are going to use a recruitment system, any type of recruitment system, I would still go through the resumes and take a look at them. They get to attach the job applicant still gets to attach the resume to their job application. I would still take a look. Even though you're always looking for keywords, one of the best employees I ever had was one of those ones that was missed. And it was just because she didn't know. And it's funny, she was in HR, but she was junior in HR. She didn't know exactly the intricacies of how to, I guess, think like a robot. And once I met with her, I knew she was exactly who I needed to speak with. So I would say if you end up in a space like that, to still take a look at the resumes. So how do we preserve, do we trust our gut and let technology do the rest? I feel that we still need to continue to have our personal touch in the recruitment process. After all, we are hiring humans, and that is how we should treat new hires, like they are humans. I do understand the efficiencies of it, especially when you're getting thousands of applications. But I think that there is a way to use the system to screen out people who don't even qualify for the position at all. I mean, if you have a welder looking to become a cook, then maybe that might be something where the system could screen that out. Also, if we are dealing with people, will automation create a disconnect? I believe that it certainly can. There is a time and a place for automation. I believe in streamlining our practices, but not at the expense of losing the human connection. Is there such thing as being too efficient? So when we cut corners for efficiency, that is where we have gone too far. And what I mean by cutting corners is cutting important pieces to our processes. For instance, when we do recruitment, it's very important for us to do a pre-screen before we get into the interview. The pre-screen eliminates the deal breakers that could waste a lot of time moving forward. But if we cut that pre-screen completely out of the recruitment process, we could waste a lot of time and we could end up hiring the wrong individual. So as long as we're not cutting corners, we can still be efficient. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so now we are done with that section, and I'm just going to see if anybody has questions with respect to the recruitment side of things and automation. Oh, looks like we're good. Wow, I guess I'm being thorough. Like I said, always at the end of this, we will have a lot more time for more questions, but I thought I would just give anybody a chance. If you want to put a question in the chat, we can definitely cover in these sections. So now let's talk about onboarding. So how do we preserve the functional side of HR in onboarding? With a lot of people working from home, can we still add a personal touch to onboarding? And what can we do differently to add a personal touch to onboarding? And how can we make sure that the onboarding goes smoothly? So let's start with the first question. With a lot of people working from home, can we still add a personal touch to onboarding? Absolutely. Zoom, as you can see, is a very powerful online platform, and there are other online platforms like it that can still make an employee feel very welcome. The key to onboarding is having a good plan. What can we do differently to add a personal touch to onboarding? So for a small organization, we can invite everyone in the organization to join in on the Zoom call and to introduce themselves so that they get that good feeling. For a larger organization, we can invite key individuals that the new hire will have the most contact with and invite them to the introduction as well. We can also do things like send them a skip the dishes lunch or spend lunch with them over Zoom. Really just interact with them in their first few days of being with the organization so that they don't feel like they're on an island, that there's lots of connection. And that starts with the welcome letter that you provide them and continues on when they start working with the company. And how can we make sure that onboarding goes smoothly in this new world that we are living in? Have a well-developed plan in place for onboarding. Plan out the new hire's first day, have their manager plan out their training for the next couple of days. Like I mentioned in the last slide, send them a welcome letter that lays out exactly what they're going to be expecting when they start, and spend a lot of time with them. No questions for onboarding, I see, so we can just continue on. So how do we preserve the functional side of HR with internal communication? By using software like Slack or Teams, will we lose the personal touch? How will conversations be monitored? Will people get too brave behind the scenes, behind the screen? Will remote workplaces be the new future? Will apps like 15.5 be our new way of tracking employee performance and success? And how do dismissals work in a remote environment? For internal communication, by using software like Slack or Teams, will we lose the personal touch? How will conversations be monitored? And will people get too brave behind the screen? From my perspective, first and foremost, a policy needs to be administered that everyone agrees to and understands. This is not a social platform. It is meant for company communication. Employees need to be encouraged to come forward if they feel threatened on a chat platform. I'm sure we have all seen where Twitter or Facebook or Snapchat can be quite damaging. We want to make sure that employees know that this is not a social platform. Yes, you could use it to say, hey, in 15 minutes, I'm going for lunch. Do you want to meet me? That's great. But it's really meant to be more efficient in an organization when it comes to asking questions. So rather than me getting up out of my desk, walking over to another office, asking somebody a question and walking back, I can quickly use Slack or Microsoft Teams or whatever chat you use in your organization. I could quickly just ask that question and save a lot of time. Now, in the remote world, which we're seeing a lot more of these days, a quick little chat to another employee works really, really well. So as long as you have a good policy in place, you're going to have more success. Will remote workspaces be the new future? Remote workspaces can have real benefits. It shows an element of trust and essentially eliminates the need to micromanage. Daily and weekly check-ins will keep everyone on task. And once again, having a plan in place so that everyone is on the same page is very important. I don't believe that we will ever be in a place that we will only see remote workplaces, but I do believe we will see more transitioning to this type of work environment over time. In 2020, we have seen a push much faster than anybody was ever planning to remote workspaces. And a lot of people have been kind of fumbling over trying to figure out how to have a good workplace. But eventually, some will probably move back to their organizations and others will see the benefits of the remote setting and will stay that way. So I do see we will see more, but I don't think that's all that we'll ever see. Will apps like 15.5 be our new way of tracking employee performance and success? These apps are great if a company can afford it. They help streamline processes so that everyone can focus on business. However, the human aspect cannot be forgotten. Continual feedback and open conversations are the most important part of any performance management program. For people who have a fear of confrontation or just really are fearful of having that one-to-one conversation, they will need to step outside of their comfort zone to still have those type of conversations with employees. And us as an HR department really need to encourage that in our managers. So even if we do have these new all-encompassing artificially intelligent software programs that we use, we still need to make sure that the human connection is happening. So how do dismissals work in a oh, did I miss a, oh no, we're good. How do dismissals work in a remote environment? The key is to have a solid plan in place, just like onboarding, such as if notice will be given or if it will be an immediate dismissal. How will the news be delivered, in person or over video conference? When the employee will be locked out of their equipment? So I would suggest the timing needs to be perfect on that. You need to first have the conversation and then immediately have the IT department lock the equipment so that they cannot pull any information, proprietary information from the system. And then how will the company equipment be returned? Some suggest doing a self-addressed box, sending that over and asking the employee to put whatever company equipment they have into the self-addressed box. Any questions on that? No questions. Okay, let's go on to the next. So where in HR does artificial intelligence belong? I believe personality profiling and psychometric testing. This has been around for many years in human resources and has proven to be quite useful in some organizations. Now, not everybody uses it, and it's not always necessary in every situation, but I have seen personally the benefits of using these kind of systems. Fully functioning human resources information systems. An HRIS that has everything integrated into one place is very useful, such as payroll, employee tracking and metrics, performance management, and succession planning. The key is to ensure that your HR department is actually using every function that they have signed up for. Chat forums. Chat forums save so much time by being able to just send an employee a quick message. Like I said earlier, rather than having to walk to another organization or another office. Automated welcome packages and employee policies are very helpful. Providing welcome packages systematically will save HR so much time. Also, switching to software that holds employee policies makes it easy for everyone to access and for HR to provide updates. Learning management systems to keep learning in-house. The LMS, when used properly, can be quite useful. I have seen them when they are fully functioning and are a true benefit to the organization. Okay, you know what? I have a question from the last set of slides, and I'm just going to quickly cover it. So the question is, I'm just going to pull the chat over here. The question is, good evening, ma'am. How efficiently the remote dismissal works when compared to traditional method? That's actually a really good question. One thing I would suggest in remote dismissals is if you can, try your best to call the employee into the office and do it face-to-face. There are a lot of emotions that come with dismissals. I have seen anger, I've seen sadness, I've seen all out crying, I've seen silence. And when it is face-to-face in a more human environment, you can help mitigate some of the emotions that are happening in a situation like that. For instance, when somebody's crying, you can offer them a Kleenex, and then you can revert to the termination letter and go through that. The termination over the screen kind of loses that human touch, but sometimes that's the only way, especially in the COVID environment right now, that's the only way that we can do things. So I feel that even though you're on screen, when the emotion starts with the employee, when they realize they are being dismissed, it is always best to just take a moment and let them work through their emotion. And then again, mitigate those emotions by referring straight to the termination letter and telling them what the next steps are, trying to stay on task and trying to keep the emotions at bay as much as possible, is the best way. I hope that helps answer your question. It really truly is a different type of method that we've been forced into. The traditional method absolutely it definitely has more of a human factor to it. I do encourage that, but sometimes we have to do it the other way, so we have to adjust. And the more you experience it, the better that it is. And I would always suggest having, when you're in the room, in the traditional method, when you are in that room with the other person, you should have somebody, a secondary person there, for many reasons. A person, oh, we have another question. A person who finished MBA HR on distance education and wanted to pursue a career in HR, what ways can they start up their HR career? Or what practical help is needed to get into HR? Well, that's a very good question. One of the things I would definitely suggest, now, if you've taken your MBA through a college remotely, most colleges and universities will have a career department. I would definitely go to that career department and get as much information as you can from them on, and as much help as you can from them. You also want to look locally into how to find different where jobs are. I don't know how it is in India, but for us here, our governments do a really good job at opening up job opportunities, both for citizens and residents, as well as for immigrants. Our Government of Canada Job Bank is a great place to look. But that's what I would do to start up your HR career and get as much volunteering experience as you can when you are studying. Okay, you're welcome so much. Okay, so on to the next. It's important to note that we are still learning. We have a long way to go to understanding the benefits and challenges of the new HR trends. There are a lot of benefits to being more streamlined and automated, and I think that if we remain open-minded, I think we will do better with these new transitions. There are still some challenges, especially when it comes to small businesses, like cost and implementation. And at the end of the day, we need to keep our minds open and accept the trends that we are seeing. So the key takeaways for today are: always have a plan in place for employees who are new to the company and for those who are working remotely. Do your research when deciding on whether to purchase software for the company. Watch the demos, read the reviews, and talk to current users before you jump into a new piece of technology. And number 3, always remember the human or people factor of human resources or people and culture. Okay, so now we can go into question time. Just going to stop sharing the screen. So if anybody has more questions, I am open for anything that was covered or wasn't covered, whatever you might have. And I'm going to allow participants to unmute themselves so that if there is a question, you could unmute yourself and ask the question if you like, or you can put it in the chat. It might take a moment for the chats to come across just because we have a bit of a delay being on the other side of the world. I don't see any questions. You can ask me anything. It doesn't have to be with AI or the emerging trends. If you have an HR question, maybe what it's like in Canada, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Ma'am, good evening, ma'am.
Good
Am I
evening.
audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
you are.
actually, yeah, thank you, ma'am. Like, I would like to know, like, as such, personally, I have completed my MBA HR, and actually, I mean, we had a subject like I'm a nutrition and dietetics staff who's working in SDNB Vaishnav College. So, like, I have done my MBA HR. Now, there are few students who ask me questions like, "Ma'am, we are also interested in doing HR after finishing their UG." And they ask me like how to start up, like what has to be done, or like in which stream, like we have different kinds of HR, like we have hospitality management, we have HR finance. So there are different kinds of streams which is there. So they ask me which will be more suitable for a candidate who have done UG in food service management. And in India, I don't know how to, like, I mean, it is very difficult to like connect it and help the students like how to go about or how to choose that PG in HR. So which line they can take up?
Oh, yes, that's a good question. You know, this probably isn't the answer that they want to hear, but really, truly, you don't know where you enjoy it the most until you've experienced it. I have been in the oil and gas industry, but the clients that I have are all over the place. I mean, yeah, in hospitality, in construction, and yeah, I'll tell you, yeah, you really do have to experience it. What I would suggest is to ask them what they gravitate towards more, like what they really feel in their heart that they would enjoy the most. And sometimes you'll just know, and sometimes you won't, and you have to experience it before you actually do. I know that's probably not the greatest question, but greatest answer, but it really is. It really is truly hard to know for sure until you're doing it.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Sorry about that. You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so I have a chat question here. What is the biggest challenge you have faced as an HR professional? I can tell you this right off the bat. It was the one company that I worked for. We had a temporary foreign worker program, and we had foreign workers that worked for us from Mexico and also from the Philippines. And they were wonderful, wonderful people. They worked so hard for us. They were absolutely amazing. And we ended up, at the time when we hired them, we didn't have enough Canadians to work for us, and we had to go outside of our country. And we were in a boom. But then all of a sudden we had a crash in the economy, and we had to, unfortunately, by law, you have to let go of your foreign workers before you do your Canadian workers. And they were our best workers. That was the biggest challenge I ever had. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. I lost sleep over it. Having to sit down and have a conversation with somebody that is an amazing worker, and the only reason that you have to let them go is because they are from another country. That was the biggest challenge I ever had. And luckily, I never had to go through that again. But it was a very emotional time. And sometimes those are things that we just have to face. And when it comes to the law and the economy, things that are out of your control, these are the things that you end up facing. Any other questions? Okay, I think, oh, I have another question here. Ma'am, do you offer internships for students from India? Actually, Dr. Mahisha and I are working on that right now. I have been, I just launched my program. I just started last week, and I am going to need help with it. I am definitely really, truly considering doing an internship or 2 or maybe 3, depending. I'm just trying to work out the logistics of that, exactly what I need to make sure the interns get fulfillment from what they are doing, and that it really is good HR work. So I have to work on that plan. I've just been a little bit busy with the launch of my program, but I am definitely considering that. The next question is, what do you look for when recruiting a candidate? Well, that actually really depends on the job. So the first thing that I would do is I would look at the job description. I would take a look at what they're going to be filling and what attributes that candidate needs to have. And then from there, I would, you know, obviously try to match the candidate up to the job description as much as possible. But then I also, the very next and most important thing is to look at the culture of the company. So once you have screened your resumes down for skill and for abilities, and you've done your preliminary screening where you've asked important questions, deal breaker questions, in the interview is where I really get an opportunity, and whoever is doing it, whatever hiring manager is with me, that's where I get the opportunity to see if this person is a fit for company culture. Now, we always take nerves into consideration because the person being interviewed generally can be a little bit nervous. So you take that into consideration, but you can get a good feel for how that person is going to fit into the organization. And that's what I truly look for. And I always do reference checks to make sure that what I saw and what the hiring managers saw was what they saw as well in that employee, or sorry, in that candidate, hopefully future employee. Ah, there's a feedback form. I love it. So Dr. Mahisha has sent a feedback form. So if everybody could complete that feedback form, that would be wonderful. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome so much. Oh, okay. I have another question. A person with theoretical knowledge on HR, but to start up her career in MBA HR, she needs some diploma course or any course need to be completed. I'm not sure how MBA HR works in India, but I know in Canada here, we definitely do need to have a little bit of a background, some experience. It's really good to have some practical experience along with your theoretical knowledge before jumping into your MBA, just because of how intensive it can be. A lot of us do our MBAs here while working. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but that's how we do it here. Okay, those are all the questions. Dr. Mahisha, do you have anything to say?
No,
if any participants have any question, let them send me a mail and I can send it across to you, and you can answer through mail also, and I can respond them.
I would love that. I would love that. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have after this session. Oh, and you're welcome. You're welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. That was very sweet.
Yes. And before we wind up, we have a vote of thanks program for you. Like a student will do that.
A which?
Thanks, vote of thanks.
Oh,
Giving thanks.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Aparna, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Hello.
It's proposed Onboarding.
I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
Yes, Aparna, your voice is not audible.
There. Hold on. Now it's audible.
I think it might be a connection.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Aparna, I can hear you.
Hello, now I am audible.
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay. A very good evening to all. Yeah.
Good evening.
It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this event.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead. We can hear you.
I would like to thank you, our honored. Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. I would like to thank our honored guest for not only inspiring their valuable time for us to grace this event, but also for enlightening us to a commendable talk subject. I would like our principal, staff members, volunteers, and last but not the least, our beloved students. Once again, I thank one and all present here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yes, actually, I think there's a network problem for her.
Yeah. Yes, I could hear her for the most part, and that was very sweet.
Yes. Okay, then. I'll share you the feedback once I get from the participants. I'll share it through email. Yeah.
I would love that. And I'm getting so many wonderful thank yous on the chat. You are all just wonderful people. And I appreciate, again, Dr. Mahisha for having me and for everybody sticking around and listening to me. I really appreciate that too. And for the interaction and for the great questions. It's been a real treat, a real pleasure.
Yeah, sure, sure. Thank you so much for joining us, Teresa, this morning. And yes, it was a very informative session, and I think students would have got good knowledge about these topics, whatever we have shared. And you can also share the recordings, whatever you've got, and I can pass it to the participants, those who have not able to join. I'm getting so many of messages that we are not able to join like that. I've told them like I'll share the recordings for them.
Perfect.
So that they listen to that. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. I will upload that right after this, and I will send it to you so those ones that couldn't join can join or can watch it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Teresa. Be in touch.
Thank you.
We'll do something more also. Yeah. Thank you so much.
I would love that. Thank you. We'll talk soon. Bye, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Bye. Bye-bye.